Welcome back to another new edition of the Clearing the Crease podcast, powered by BODOG.EU. We've got Calders, we got Cups, he's Commie, he's Razor, I'm Cybulski. We've got a jam-packed, you talk about, this is a show built on personalities. I mean, this is a show already lined up with personalities. I mean, Commie, who's half the time in one anyway, and Razor, well, just dreaming to be in one. It's the life of parenthood. But man, you talk about personalities this week, guys. I am looking forward to this. A former former top 10 NHL pick, went on to become a gold medalist in ball hockey. He starred in TV series alongside Jason Momoa. We're talking Aquaman. Yeah, he's been in Zack Snyder films. Just an absolute beauty of a personality. We're talking about Terry Ryan. And also, he's back after sending this show going viral a number of weeks ago. We're bringing it back. Matthew Barnaby. So, cool. Boys, buckle up. This should be a fun. Commie, you are a personality, but man, these two.
Oh yeah, I'll take a back seat to these two. There's no doubt about it. I'm not even going to try and compete with these two. It's impossible.
Razor, these are the guys that you describe as the good in the room, right?
Yeah, the glue guys, right? And with TR, we heard about Tux being roommates with him a couple shows back. If you didn't see Tucker's interview, that was great. And we get to piggyback that interview with Terry Ryan coming on. Really appreciate him doing that. It seemed like a no-brainer once Darcy talked about them living together in Montreal.
No kidding. What a journey. And hey, listen, everybody, we are officially on the road to the Stanley Cup. Yes, it's happening. Make sure you get into the action every night with game odds, all the props you need to make hockey exciting each and every evening, including goal scores and, yes, your Stanley Cup odds. BODOG.EU has you covered with action that'll keep you locked in on the action every single shift all season long. Make a play, score big, and score now with BODOG. And don't forget, new players can take advantage of the BODOG bonus simply using the code CREASE400 when you sign up. And look at this, right on time, right on cue. He is ready. You talk about beauties here, gentlemen. Look at this. That might be a mug full of whiskey right there, or screech right there from Newfoundland. How about this? Here is a guy who was a top 10 NHL pick. He went 5 spots ahead of Jarome Iginla. And number one in your heart, Terry Ryan. Terry, how are you, man?
I'm all right. Thanks for having me, guys. Looking forward to this. Appreciate it.
We are too. Your name came up, and we have not stopped talking about you since Darcy Tucker joined us a few weeks ago. And Razor was like, okay, we need to make this happen, right?
Yeah, Tux was my roommate, and after we were like arch rivals in the West. And that is hockey's a small world. That's the way a lot of things happen. But, he's one of the guys I still talk to this day. If you told me that in 94, 95, when he played for Kamloops, I played with Tri-City, I wouldn't have believed you.
Well, hey, let's go right to that 94-95 season. The stat line's ridiculous. And when we have guys on that are NHLers, that the junior stat lines are always the best, and especially in the mid-90s, because your stat line in that 94-95 season, 70 games, 50 goals, 60 assists, 110 points. Seems like you lined all of those up perfectly and maybe just sat on them. And then, of course, 207 PIMs to add to all that. Tell us about the Wild West and the Western Hockey League back in those days, and that season in particular.
Well, it was awesome. That was a magical year. So myself, Brian Boucher, and Damon Lanko all played on that team, and we all went in the first round that year. And we had a good team. It's just that we ran into Kamloops every year. Kamloops won 3 out of 5, 3 out of 4, maybe 3 out of 5 Memorial Cups. It was most of my time out there. But I left. I'm the only Newfoundlander to ever play in the Western League. I went to the Quebec Pee Wee tournament and got scouted kind of indirectly to go out there, and I did. It's a long story, but anyways, by the time I got to Tri-Cities, I went 3rd overall into the Western League draft, and I got there, and I'm looking forward to it. I don't really know much about it. Tri-Cities is Richland, Pasco, Kennewick. It's a great spot. It's not exactly the first place you think when you think of hockey hotbed, but It was nice. There was the fans really supported us. It was kind of new then, so I don't think they knew the most about the game, systematically. I think they were just there to support us. So it was a real fun, positive vibe. Lanks, I'm trying to think of because he ended up leading the league. I know the year before, as a 16-year-old, I played center. I had an okay year. I guess by my standards, I wanted to have a little bit better. I think I had 33 points,
You did.
176 penalty minutes as a
Exactly.
16-year-old, third overall coming in. But Lanks, I believe, had a decent year, nothing like the next year. And Bush wasn't on our team; he was still playing in Rhode Island. So the next year comes, I'm 17, and Bob Laux comes to me and he says, you can either play center on the second or third line because you're just not a good enough skater. You're not as good as Damon Lankow, but I think you should play on his left wing. And it was definitely a better natural fit. Lanks was a brilliant skater. We thought very, very similarly. When it just fits sometimes. Players that you play with, and it fits like a glove. So that was interesting. And again, we're there. I think at the beginning of the year we were rated high. We were on the radar. By I say high, I mean like top couple of rounds.
But
But
you guys were trending already in that direction going
we were
into that season.
starting to, yeah. And I know that, like I said, we both, I don't remember how many points he had in 93, 94, but we both took off playing with each other at the end of that year. And it was magical. I got my 50th goal with 28 seconds left in the season. Lanks won the scoring on the same day. Three of us, as the year went on, we gained more and more notoriety. And so we had that to absorb off each other. I've talked to players that are first round picks, and it's more of a personal experience. But not only that, we all had the same agent, IMG, Mike Barnett and Tom Laidlaw. So when I talk, it doesn't feel like a personal journey at all that particular year. But everything.
And Terry, Mike Barnett at the time was like,
Yeah,
that was the golden goose as an agent, right? I mean, Gretzky's still in that, like he was
you're
Gretzky's
right.
guy, right? Right.
He
Like
was.
Mike Barnett was the one that if you wanted to have an agent at that time, he was
You
the guy.
wanted Mike Barnett, so I went out to play. Tri-City told me I was going out west. I had to live out west for them to pick me, right? So I moved out. My father was a he was a teacher over here. They got him a substitute teaching job, and I believe gave him a bit of a golden handshake. You'll have to ask him about the specifics, but I got out
Junior hockey.
I was 14 years old. I go to Quesnel, and I went out with the junior team. And I put the visor on, and I loved it. I said,
How'd you like Quesnel? That's a nice town.
Well,
Tough
Quesnel,
town, but
I'm from Newfoundland. I didn't need all the hoopla of Vancouver or any of that.
Yeah.
It was nice for me. My dad's from Grand Falls. I'm from Mount Pearl. Mount Pearl's about 30,000, Grand Falls 10. So it was my kind of town. A lot of Newfoundlanders were out in northern BC working. It was perfect for me at the time. And again, I'm 14. I don't realize I'm going to be playing on the junior team. I know I'm going out there to go to camp, but that whole thing was surreal. I mean, I won my first fight. I put hot sauce on my hands, rubbed it in the guy's eye. Like it was almost like, oh yeah, that's true.
Wait.
I got shit kicked.
You gotta a little more on that, please.
Okay, so
Hot
I hate to
sauce.
skip ahead of stuff, but I also hate to ramble. Okay, I go out there at 14. Okay, and I got zits all over my face. I spoke like Ted Hitchcock. People, it's all coming from somewhere. What do you have, boys? Hey, anybody want to go for a pregame meal or what? Boys? Like I was talking like that. Like again, I had zits all over my face, and just the ugly odd duckling. And I went to camp, and at first people didn't love it, right? Because I'm taking a spot of a local guy that's going for a dub or a scholarship or whatever. So I wasn't really welcome with open arms when I first got there. I'm in grade 9, right? I'm the youngest junior player in Canada. I don't really even realize I'm going to be playing junior, but the more I do, the more I like it. But anyway, first exhibition game, I go to take the draw. And the guy goes to me, "Yeah, you're from Newfoundland, eh?" His name was Lenny Forshner. "Oh, you're from Newfoundland, eh?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, welcome to the West." And then cross checks me in the face. I didn't realize we got into it. Lenny since passed away, and we've totally made we made amends. We ended up being pretty good buddies. But it was a defenseman on his team, and the guy came in off the draw and kind of Lenny cross checked me, but we got into a fight. So I got into a fight before I ever really threw a hit. Again, Pee Wee up back here. There's no hitting. So there was so much to really absorb in that situation. But anyway, I got beat up. I went off, but the fans were going mad, and I was on the junior team. I felt like a Quesnel millionaire, oddly as it was. But I said, I swear to God, guys, after the game, I wanted to go home. And I remember the day before I came out here, I played an exhibition game with the high school team here, O'Donnell. I had 6 goals. We won 6-5. I figured, with that is going to come like girls, hanging out with the boys, everything that a regular 14, 15-year-old wants to accomplish, which really isn't much. But I knew I had a hockey possibility of a career, but still, my dad had to sell me on it. Newfoundland, we had defeatist attitude then. I've been to the Nationals in ball hockey, baseball, soccer, and ice hockey. And you know what Newfoundland's job is? Play the host first game, so the host beats you 9-1. Everybody gets a free hot dog. And rah, Newfoundlanders work hard. They work some hard, right? But so that was my experience. It was a bit of an inferiority complex. But as that year went on, if you can believe it, that year I ended up leading the team in penalty minutes and points. I don't know how. Of everything that ever happened, I had to have great teammates. There was a couple of injuries at the right time with guys that were leading it. And anyway, it just all came together. But that first game, I didn't know what to do. And my dad said, just give it a month. I mean, guys, I couldn't even sleep. The anxiety. I wanted to be home with my buddies, but he didn't force me. I knew that I had an opportunity there. And everybody around me is telling me that I'm a pretty good player, so I'm starting to believe it. So I just said, I'll give it a month. And after that happened, after I got beat up, I went in, I looked right in the mirror. I just looked in the mirror. I said, you fucking better do this. You got to do something. Now is the time to step up. Now, how am I going to do it? So what happened was we went to pregame meal. I think we played Williams Lake again a week and a half later. And I didn't tell the boys I was going to do it. And Chris Spencer actually told me, he said, I'll fight that guy for you in the third period. It was still a fight, you get thrown out. There was no suspension or anything, but junior A fight, you get thrown out. So he said, I'll get him in the third period. But I had other plans. I got to the rink and I took my helmet. You know those big files that you used to like shave your stick down with and stuff?
Yeah.
I took one of those and a couple of knives and I chipped up the outside of my helmet. And that was actually a tip from a local.
You scuffed
Yeah,
it up.
man. So I knew that he's going to hurt his hands when he's punching me, and that came from a local named Jason Helzel. That wasn't my idea, but I ran with it. So, and I don't think he actually thought I was going to do it. But anyway,
like the bus driver in Slapshot banging up the bus, right? Like making it look mean.
Yeah. Well, it's similar attitude. Yeah. And then I went and the boys went out and I said, oh yeah, I forgot my whatever gear, whatever piece of equipment. I went back in the room. And then I took the hot sauce and I put it in the sink and I bathed my hands in it. And I went out and one thing led to another. I asked this guy to fight and he said no. And I said, well, you had no problem the other night. Give me a chance here. So he kind of started licking his lips coming back and I got in tight on him and that was it. Then I could see he was obviously hitting me with a lot of punches, but my visor started to fill in red and I knew it wasn't my blood. I knew his hands.
His hands are bleeding.
And then, I rubbed my thumbs in his eyes. Kicked the living shit out of him in front of a full house, lost my virginity later that night, and never wanted to go home again. The boys put me under their wing. Guys, think about this. I had to tread the line. And my dad, I know now, would be seen as some barbarian. Even at the time, a lot of people didn't agree. But he knew that I could handle it, and it certainly helped me. By the time I got to the Western League, it was my third year junior. I had a one-up on all these guys. I've been in fights, I was still young, but anyway. But Dad was like, to the leaders on the team. And he said, Terry can't be a nerd. That'll be bad for his comp, but I don't want him to be a piss tank either. So now he's 14. Now you guys are going to have to take care of him. I don't want him coming home after 10 beers, but if he has a few, I'll look the other way. Like whatever it is, not all the time, but team parties and everything. And they really, really, for 2 years, I played there for 2 years, both Bantam years, and they really helped me. And we also, halfway through my first year there at that 14-year-old year, Tri-Cities had signed Sheldon Surrey. And Sheldon's a year older than me, but he was still a Bantam player, and him coming in, was, again, real young, played junior. So Sheldon then, when he moved to Quesnel, it really settled me down, and we were there. And then we went to Tri-Cities together. So Sheldon became one of my really good buddies. And I think, looking back, I know it seems barbaric, and I know those stories seem crazy. And, the junior, we got our bus tipped over. I had 222 minutes. I was a 14-year-old. But, everybody's different, and it worked for me.
The bus tipped over?
In Fort St. John, where I'm going tomorrow morning to do a Crystal Cup, to do a charity event. Yeah, Fort St. John Huskies, they tipped over our bus. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Yeah, they tipped it right against, like, we were like outside of the rink, and they tipped it, and it went off. It just went up on two wheels against the side of the rink.
So they pushed it. So this wasn't an accident, like going off the road. This was a group of people
pushed it. Yeah, and then we went to Grand Prairie, and it's the only bench clearing brawl that I was ever in. I was in line brawls. We went to Grand Prairie the same trip, and it was a bench clearing brawl, and we went right up into the crowd. Oh, it was crazy. And boys used to take me out. I used to take my hat, put it down over my head, Vaseline and pepper on my face to look like stubble. And I'd get into the bars with them and just hang out. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's how you got into the bars.
Oh yeah.
Vaseline and pepper. Who needs fake ID when you got
I've never
Vaseline
heard
and
about
pepper?
that.
Exactly, man.
Vaseline.
Exactly. I had to now. By the time I got in there, it burns your.
Oh,
face
your face would have been
I
screaming.
was
Yeah.
already in the bar.
That's funny. Terry, moving forward, obviously you had great years in Tri-Cities. Where was the draft when you got drafted? I know I've heard this, but I can't remember right now.
It was in Edmonton. It was fortunate for me because we had like 14 players on our team from Edmonton, including Sheldon. Damon's from there, Vegreville. But yeah, there's a lot of players. My roommate, Zenith Kormaniski.
You played with Zenith as well? Yeah, you would have in Tri-Cities. Zenith and I played Pee Wee and Midget Bantam together.
I didn't realize that. I played with Zeke. Zeke came in as a 16-year-old, and we lived with Mark and Nancy Eby in Tri-Cities.
Yeah.
Zeke thought he'd pull a prank. I used to prank the boys, as you can imagine. I had no brothers and sisters. I used to enjoy that. My role in the room, if you ever saw me wearing an A or the odd time a C, it was more like try to lead by example, but loosey-goosey in the room. Yeah. I really wasn't comfortable trying to tell people what to do, and I know some people are better at it than others, but I was more of a joker in the room. So anyway, Zeke knew that, and he told the boys, "I'm gonna get Terry. Fuck him. I'm gonna get." So he came, and he put my teeth for a while would bleed when I would brush them a little bit, and so I'd have a little tinge of pink or red on my toothbrush. So speaking of hot sauce, so he went and got like he ordered it in. It was like the hottest sauce known to man, and he put it on my toothbrush. I said, okay. So I didn't realize this. I went to brush my teeth, and I knew right away, I'm like, fuck that guy. You know what I did? And we used to give it to Zeke because he had this huge nose, right? Zeke.
Yeah, he did.
And so, everything from Toucan Sam to whatever, but he couldn't smell really well. So I was like, okay, game on. I took his cool water cologne, took the top off, took a piss in it, put the top back on. About 2 weeks later, we're at a high school party, the Kamaikan Braves. And I'm going, hey, Zeke, how's that going? I said, and I told everybody the story before he showed up. Anyway, he showed up. I said, how does my piss feel? What are you talking about, Terry? What? Just come over there and smell Zeke, ladies. He's wearing my piss. Anyway, he learned not to do that to me again. Well, we're really good buddies now.
That's funny. How was that draft in Edmonton, Terry? Like that was the draft where
Brian Berard, wasn't it?
Brian Berard went first.
Was that where Steve Kelly got booed?
Yeah, it is. Steve Kelly, he went 6th. Yeah. And
that's right. Right before Dome, right?
7th. For those keeping track, Jerome McGinley went 11th. I had a ham sandwich and a coffee before he got drafted. But anyway, moving on. No. So the draft was in Edmonton, and it was awesome. I got some relatives out there, and all the boys, and Lanx's family was there. Like it really was. Looking back, I don't even need to look back. Even at the time, I remember saying, I got to pinch myself. This is an awesome day. But what's funny is that I'd been interviewed. I think there was 26 teams in the league then. I think, whatever the case, I'd been interviewed by all but 2 of them, and Montreal was one of the teams that didn't interview me. And we're in the elevator on the way to the draft. Doug Robinson's in there, and Pierre Montu, Montreal's 2 head scouts, and I'm in there with my dad. We get caught in the elevator with these guys. And Robinson says, hey, a lot of goals, a lot of penalty minutes, like to play rough, like to go to the hard areas, good shot. I'm going, yeah. And then he goes, great Memorial Cup. And I look at my dad, and Dad goes, he thinks you're Shane Doan. And I said, okay, well, thanks a lot, Mr. Robinson. I went and sat down. I thought there's no possible way. I knew Boston. I thought maybe Boston. They were picking 9, and I get that Ryan Irish. I'm not saying you pick a guy because of his name, but it really it would have really helped my cause there to give an honor. Cam Neely's there. He's one of my favorite players. Boston really seemed like the fit. And I remember Boston saying, if we pick you, you'll never go down. We'd rather you be here. And they picked Kyle McLaren, and they didn't send him down. Kyle was the one, again, I'm saying, if you could look at one player that wasn't ready, because he was thin. He was 6'3" is he?
He was
6'4",
huge. He was tall.
but he's like six. Yeah, now I'm not saying that it didn't work out for him, and he didn't. I'm just saying, of all of us, we just played with him, and we could tell he was going to be something at some point, but he was still like 170 pounds anyway. So they they had no idea what I looked like, and about, I don't know, 25 minutes later, they call my name.
So tell me, so you become a Montreal Canadian through
Yeah.
the draft, and we got to get your version of this story because, I mean, boys, we heard Tucker's side about how you corrupted him
Yeah,
in terms of
he did blame it
convincing
on you.
him to get the big suite or the big house, right, as roommates in Montreal, and then immediately you're sent back. You know, as Tommy would say, you pack your shit for the minors, and then Tucker's kind of left
Well,
twisted in
I
the
was
wind.
in junior, so I went back.
Okay,
I knew going in. I guess Tux didn't know this side of the story, but when I was there, Tux had played a year in Fredericton, and I think he had like 90 odd points, but he's 2 years older than me, so I still had a year junior left.
okay.
So when I got there, and Aaron Asham had been drafted, and I remember them saying that would be a great third or fourth line, you, Asham, and Tucker. I remember them saying that.
Yeah, that'd be a
So,
problem.
that was part of their philosophy. So it wasn't just my idea. I think they said if you find a roommate, maybe Darcy Tucker, and I was starting to get to know him a little bit, and it was my understanding I was going to practice with the team for most of the year and then go back to junior, and that's what happened. I don't know if I ever really said that out loud. You're not parading around. I can't wait to get sent down, and I had a concussion the year before I needed. So anyway, it was good. I got 4 games in, I think. I practiced with the team all year, and I mean, you'd never say it from the stat line and everything, but trust me, that really did everything that happened to me after that. That's another circumstantial. We can get into that, but I really enjoyed that year. Yeah, and me and Tux. I mean, I don't know. I'm like, Tux, where are we going to live? Like downtown. I don't know if you know Montreal, but I'm gonna know you guys do to some degree. There's St. Catherine, then you got Crescent Street. In and around there is Chez Paree and Wanda's and places that we all like to hang out. And just Willamontang is one of the cross streets, and we just got a spot right at the top. It was at the time, I don't know, I think it was maybe $2,500, which was a lot at the time. And my idea was, I said, if we want to get to know the team better and everything, the boys often just want to break. Let's get a couple of fridges here. Let's have what food do they like and everything. Let's just make sure. And it was for a while. People would drop over, and that was my whole idea. But then I left him with the bill and all this like outrageous furniture, a disco ball. Yeah, it was outrageous. It was a good time though. I went and I also left him I had a Camaro. We were bobbing around in that thing in the middle of the winter in Montreal. But good memories, yeah, for me
You
anyway.
left him a Camaro as well, so he was driving that around all winter.
Oh, he left that part out of it.
Camaro around, yeah, all winter. Yeah,
It's a good car for downtown Montreal in the winter.
Yeah, good memories though. I look back and people are like, "Oh man, you sat out so many games," but I was 19 and I'm like, okay. I remember when they told me I made it. I'm like, okay, so like I can go out and say that I'm on the Montreal Canadiens. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, so I'm technically on the team here. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Terry, like you grow up in Newfoundland, so obviously, as somebody who grew up in the East as well, I mean, there's a ton of Habs fans out there, right? I mean, as much as people talk about the strength and size of Leafs Nation, like travels well everywhere. Did you have some of those brushes with greatness with whether you cross paths with Beliveau or even, I mean, the Rocket's still alive at that time, still around? Like
Rocket was
Gila Flu,
alive. Look, I grew up a huge Habs fan. I knew everything about them. I still say Chris Nyland's underrated. The guy had 20 goals twice, or I think 19 and 21, whatever it is. He could put the puck in the net. And he wasn't just this goon that went out. He was usually defending his teammates. And like, I really loved the Habs and I loved Chris Nyland. I could tell you all their stats, everything else. So it was surreal for me to go to that team, first of all. Okay. And then to experience it. I mean, I know, again, looking at Hockey DB, you'd say, man, I must have hated my time there. No, not at all. Now, I didn't like Michel Therrien, and we can get into that. I didn't like Michel Therrien like
I think a lot of people did.
Well, now you see that. But at the time, no one really knew it. And I didn't want to rat him out. There was no social media. I did never say it to my agent. I should have, looking back. And he was just, I know you didn't ask me this, but he was just ignorant. Like it wasn't just me. It wasn't a French English thing. He would chain smoke on the bus, and kind of want you to ask him why. Please, Mike, can you not do that? Well, fuck you. Who are you then? Who are you? Who are you? You fucking go out. You fucking play. You fucking play good. I don't smoke. Like it was always something. There was always some kind of thing to get your mind. And anyway, I get it. He was a rookie coach and I was a rookie player. I just didn't like him. And if you want me to go into some specifics about the first year in Fredericton, that was an eye opener.
I'd love to hear it.
Well,
You
I
can
tell you,
rip on coaches on this podcast. Go right ahead.
my first, I never did for years, guys. And the other thing is everybody's got a story. Now, I'm telling you, I know that I was good enough and I do think you give a first rounder 100 games to fail. That's what I think. My skating was never great, but I adapted to whatever league I was in. But again, I got nothing against the Habs. Ray John Houle was the GM when I was there. He took my daughter to her first game last year. So it's not just me getting the run into the stuff. I'm not saying that. I had numbers on Michel Therrien. I had numbers under rookie of the year for him. 21 goals, 256 minutes. But the method that he got to bring the best out of each player was one that would leave you broken mentally. And I'd never been treated like that before. It was my third or fourth game in the minors. Again, I get first round pick, right? 18, 19. I'm with the Habs for those 4 games. I go down at the deadline, but the thing is, I go to Red Deer. I have 2 points a game. I set the record in the playoffs for 3 rounds. I had 18 goals in 16 games. No fights, right? So my game's back. The concussion's long gone now. So I'm going, okay, well, long gone, no, but you know what I mean? A lot of people don't get over them. I got over it somehow. And but the next show, so I come in on a high. I think I have a chance to make the Habs, and they didn't make the playoffs the year before. But I get it now. There's 2-way contracts, and I mean I was far from proven in the NHL, so I got sent down. But third or fourth game, he calls me in, and I'm like, okay, I hadn't been called in much. In this early in the season after not doing. I was playing average, so I was like, okay, he's probably going to dump all over me, but I'd like to get to know him and see what's on his mind. So he called me in. Okay, I sit down, and he's got his desk and his chair is always a little bit higher than everybody else's. Like he wanted that mental dominance, and he sits me like, I don't know, 15 feet away. He's behind his desk. I'm just there in a chair looking up at him, and he lights up a cigarette. Okay. Now he keeps smoking and he's looking at me. And I was going to say, well, why'd you call me in here? But I didn't. And then I'm just looking straight into his eyes. Now that can be uncomfortable, right? I'm like, okay, if he's not going to speak, so I'm just looking straight into his eyes. Okay. And he's looking straight into mine. And now we don't want to break. We're just looking at each other. We're looking at each other. He smokes it right down to the butt, puts it out and says, get the fuck out of my office. That was the meeting. Not a word said, smoked a cigarette, blew it at me, and told me to get the fuck out of his office. So I'm going, oh, Jesus. I come out. Some of the guys on my team, Sylvain Blouin, Francis Bouillon, Marc Bocage, Stéphane Robida, they knew him from junior. And they said, well, that's just the way he is. I'm like, just the way he is, like a mega fuckhead? Like, what do you mean? He's the coach. He determines our goddamn fate, right? So there was that. And then I remember it was about the 8th or 9th game I broke out. I had maybe a goal and 2 assists. And he called my parents. He called me in for the same sort of thing and called my parents right in front of me. Oh, Terry's going to be good. It's all right. He had my dad on the phone, my mom. I'm thinking, this is great. Next game, I get my first shift with 30 seconds left. And there's getting the tap. And then there's this. He grabbed and he went like this. And he said, you go out and fight Jeff Ware right now. And I said, okay. I did it. Took my helmet, threw it in the crowd. I'm gone now. I'm gone. I'm checked
Jeff
out.
was a
I
big
don't
boy.
want.
Jeff was like 6'4", 6'5".
I know he was, and I didn't want to fight him. I had nothing against him. Hit my goalie or something, or he wasn't ever looking for it. He was a player that he was an honest player.
Yeah.
And it felt ridiculous. So anyway, I played those 2 years, but I never did. And I just had enough. And long story shorter. In the end, I ended up not going back to camp because of him. I said, Reggie, I just want to, and I saw all my friends that I'm playing with, like Tux, Craig Conroy, Jim Campbell, Valerie Bure, Aaron Asham. What's going on? All these guys are going somewhere and they're doing something. Look, I got rookie of the year here. Like there must be something. I must be able to help someone. But now I'm starting to get to the personal side of it. But really, that was it. And I didn't go back to camp, and I ended up hurting my ankle in Dallas camp, to be honest, and it was the beginning of the end. But I often tell these stories. If Michel Therrien was here now, the difference is, Kami, Babcock is still kind of in the and doesn't seem to have is learning a lesson a thing, but
Sure.
he's still relevant for the wrong reasons. I don't know. Maybe Michelle got to be a better person. Maybe I really don't know. Maybe he got remarried or he found some epiphany. If he was here, the first thing I would do is shake his hand and try to talk about it, because the one thing that I didn't do, I can complain. I didn't go back to camp, and at no point did I actually just walk in his office and say, okay, how do we figure this out? I don't like you, you don't like me, but I think we had more in common than we didn't. We just never really saw it. I was too young, and he was a young coach, and unfortunately, things worked out the way they did. But where I sit today, I can't really complain.
Yeah, but that's that's big of you to say. That's also a lot, like you touched on. That's a lot for a young guy to go in and have to figure it out. Like, it should be the other way around. No, I mean, he should be trying to. He's the coach. You're just
You
a
would
young
think.
kid trying to make your
Yeah.
way. Yeah, that's too
I
bad.
never ran into that before. I
Yeah,
just in my mind, if I go out and I be a good teammate, that's why a lot of people. I got in. I was a middleweight. I was definitely fighting up, and I could do pretty good against the heavyweights. But a lot of the time, it's just I wanted to be a good teammate. How can I do that? How can I prove to you guys that I'm an only child? I think there's some psyche to that. I'm 14 and 15. I feel like I got rewarded when I fought or I scored a goal by being a teammate. So I mean, my first NHL game exhibition, I fought Steve Leach. My second, I fought Ty Domi. I was 18 years old. Like, and that
yeah,
so and because I knew in my head I can't make myself score, but I can show everybody that I'm willing to be here, and I'll do something. And that didn't work with Terrian. It didn't. It's almost like the more that you tried to do that, the more he tried to shove you in your place. And he called me a couple of times a punk. I remember Jerry Fleming was the assistant coach, and Jerry, I remember while I was in the meeting, he said, Michelle, I don't know if you really understand what the word punk means. Terry's not a punk. He just made a mistake on the power play there. Like,
right.
you got to
Yeah,
pick, and there was that too. There was the French English barrier. It's naturally there, but with him, it would almost be he would always assume the worst. And
And
I get
Terry
it.
and
I'm
Terry
loud. I would come in
yeah.
sometimes blue mohawk after a Metallica concert. I wasn't a guy to break curfew or anything, though. I just did things differently, and I was very stubborn. And
But
anyway,
personality was not welcome in the 90s, right? And
no,
there was still like a coach like Terrian he wasn't a unicorn in those days. Like
no.
there were a lot of bullies like that kind of ruled the roost, through junior and in the pros and all that. So yeah, I mean that was
Well,
just there was like an expectation from some guys to be that way,
so
right?
much so, half of it with him was put on. Like, I don't think I've met Mike Keenan, and I've talked to people that played for him, for example, and that was Keenan. But
Yeah.
with Terrian, really, I mean, look when he played. He didn't go out. He wasn't like a tough guy or anything. And I remember if hockey wasn't on the agenda, and a couple times he tried. I remember the second year, he called me up to the front of the bus. I'm like, what is he ever going to say to me here? And there was an article in a magazine about the Beatles, and he just showed it to me because he knew I loved the Beatles, and he was trying, like, he was so socially awkward. That was the other thing, that by being stern, you know what I mean? There was
yeah.
something going on. I don't, there was something. We had an opportunity for more of a connection. I know that, and we were both immature, I guess.
All right, TR. Well, you talk about personality not being warranted or really wanted back then. It is now. And
Yeah,
I hate to like fast forward 17, 18 years. But I feel like we need to do that because we'll be here for 5 hours.
yeah,
And just touch on where you are now, the personality in the game that you are now, as popular as anybody in hockey right now, and then touch on you actually playing a professional hockey game this
Yes.
yeah. That
season.
Growlers.
I
that
don't
was
know how to
bonkers.
get there, but I feel like we have to get there and like just
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah, I
how
know
you
what you
are,
mean.
what you are now, and how did you play a hockey game now, and just it's the most unique story. You are
Yeah,
the most unique story in hockey, maybe
I,
ever at this
I
point now.
appreciate that. Like I said, I was done early. I'll give you I'll make a long story fairly shortly. I'll try to the goalposts here 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so I I didn't know what to do. I hurt my ankle. The NHL was one thing, but I love traveling. I couldn't play pro anymore. It was a high ankle sprain. I kept going back. I skated off the ice. I did it in Dallas camp, and I quickly, I didn't have a step to lose. I definitely wasn't a great skater. If there was a knock, that was the big one. And so I shot it with cortisone. I played in 3 of my favorite minor league cities. Last going off, it was Boise, Idaho, Cincinnati, and Orlando. And I played there knowing that I would never get back up to the NHL. And I always kept a journal. Like I said, I'm an only child, so I had these stacks of sometimes, I won't say diary. I might go 3 months without writing in it, but if I met Wayne Gretzky or something, or I'd write in this story. And so in 2009, Susan Cryans, I believe was her name, I think, from the Montreal Canadiens office. One of the ladies, I think that was her name, but she said, you got some money in your contract to go to school, but you got to do it by a certain date. So whatever it was, let's just say maybe it was like 12 years from the time I signed or something. I don't remember the ins and outs, but I had a bit. So I went back and I ended up getting an arts degree. I got a folklore. You'll laugh at that. The stories of times and traditions, and folklore is almost like studying anthropology, really similar. A lot of the courses were anthropology. So, and then I was taking English. I got an English minor. So, a lot of people were calling me to do this book, and they wanted to focus on my negative relationship with Montreal again, which is not like a negative. I love the place. I go to games. Reggie Uhl, like I said, was the GM. I think he should have played me more. I don't hold it against him. I can totally see why he didn't. There's 2-way contracts, and I wasn't a great skater, but he's a friend, right? So, and I go back. It's total water under the bridge. So the stories that they wanted, and they wanted me to like talk about players that might have been doing drugs, going through hard times. I'm like, I'm not going to sell people out. I needed the money too because I had my signing bonus blown, and I needed the money, but I said I can't sell out, and I ended up ECW called me, and for nothing but a $2,500 bonus, well, sorry, advance with which I had to pay back, and the minor deal. But and they said you can do whatever you want, and I just gone to school. Folklore helped me learn how to tell a story, and English kind of helped me realize how to edit that story. So I presented to them a series of stories, and they said, "What do you want to call it?" I said, "Tales of a First Round Nothing." It got to be something tongue in cheek that says that I really appreciated my time, but I kind of fucked up. But life goes on. How are we going to do that? One of my favorite books growing up was Judy Blume, Tales of a Fourth Grade
Fourth
Nothing.
grade nothing. Yeah.
Right. And so I was like, okay, this guy's kind of misunderstood and everything. So I said, and there was so much out there, social media, but people didn't know whether I just went back and I went to camp out of shape, or I just stopped playing because of substance abuse or whatever, which none of that was the case, but no one really knew it before social media, unless I call a reporter or my agent says something. I mean, how's anybody going to really know? So I said, as long as I can tell my story. And the other thing I said, I don't want to focus on the NHL. I loved playing in Boise and Tri-Cities and Hershey and Long Beach and all these places. And, I'd rather it be kind of about a boy growing up. So that was kind of that came. And I got out of university. I was going to go on and do education. Like my dad became a teacher. I wanted to do it for many reasons. And I just, my buddy BJ Young passed away in a car accident. He played a game for the Red Wings. And so I was raising his kid. That's a story on its own, Tyson. And I just had Penny Lane, my daughter Penny Lane. She's just got her from school. She's 13 now. She was 2 or 3, I guess. So I got out and I was offered on a film set. My buddy Alan Hocko was the lead actor on a Canadian TV show called Republic of Doyle. And it was the first major production that we had here. Now we got studios. We got a huge 200-person crew.
And Terry, that's exclusively filmed in Newfoundland, right? Like that's all.
Yeah, that was filmed, and it led to like now we have 3 studios. Now those same people do a show called Hudson and Rex, and Son of a Critch, and so anyway. But at the time, it was a job, and he said. So Hawks called me in. He said, and I'd made some bad investments. I needed money, and he just said, look, it's going to be whatever it was. I think $300 a day, plus if you do overtime. But it was like jump how high. I was a production assistant. I was locations, and then I was an AD. And like, if you know that world, you're in there, you're working hard. And it's like long 15, 16, 17, sometimes hour days. And I did that for 5 years, right? I didn't expect to be an actor or anything else. I was in there and it was good money. And now all of a sudden other places started coming here and the province clued in. And we give a great tax credit now for anybody that wants to come. Part of Peter Pan was just filmed here. We got 4 or 5 movies going on here now at this exact time. Ben Stiller's out in Bonavista as I speak. So like it became somewhat of a hotbed being how our size. I don't think anybody really expected it. But for many reasons now, this is a good place to film. But anyway, at that time, so this is what happened. The show ends 2015. They do season 6. It's all done. We hear that they're doing a show called Frontier, which is coming in 8 months or so. Okay. And then they're going, who's going to be in it? And we're hearing Khal Drago from Game of Thrones, Jason Momoa is coming. So in the summer, now these people are always doing side projects. So I get a call in the summer to go out to Bonavista again, Trinity Bonavista. That's where Michael Ryder and Adam Party are from. And it's a 2-hour jaunt at least from St. John's. But we go out there and we're in this community called Keels, and the Wi-Fi doesn't work. It's tiny. There's maybe 20 houses, but it's a great place to film for a few reasons. And we're doing this show called Maudie, and it's about Maud Lewis, who is a folk artist from Digby, Nova Scotia. So Keels is going to double as Digby, Nova Scotia in this film. So anyway, and Ethan Hawke is in it. So with Sally Hopkins, I think her name is. So I'm at the end of a long day, and most people that work on this show are going back into Clarenville or they're going to Bonavista where their hotels are. But again, where I got to be last on the scene and first on it, I'm sitting right next to where we're going to do set the next day. So the only people in the community with us are the actors. So I sit there at the end of a long ass day. It's about October 20th. And we get real warm. We get some warm days in the fall. It's like 25 degrees still. The sun's going down. I got a bottle of Jack right here, and I got a joint right here. Take a sip, puffing on the joint. Behind me, I hear these footsteps. Ethan Hawke sits right next to me. Now, he used to go to games in Montreal with Kiefer Sutherland. So the first day we were filming, I could have got fired for this, but I threw my book, which had just been released, Tales of a First Round Nothing. I threw it into his seat in the green room. And again, I didn't ever think if he did get around to it, whenever that would be, who knows? Other than that, I didn't make eye contact with him. And he sat down and he said, "You know what? I fucking love the book." I said, "You didn't read it already. I just gave it to you." And he said, "Well, we got no Wi-Fi out here. I can't call home or anything. So not only did I read it, but now I want to have a drink with you and talk about it." So I'm going, okay, we're sitting on the edge of a cliff, me and Ethan Hawke. So we're going back and forth. And he told me he had a friend. I don't know college football that well, but I think he said he coached Texas A&M for a while, and he could have been up in the NFL, but he didn't. And he said, it's not all about that. It's about the journey. And he said, after reading that, if nothing else, you're a creative person. He said, now I think you should go for an audition. I'm like, what? In the fucking movies? Yes, bye. And he goes, oh, that's honestly, I said, I've been doing this for 5 years. If I was going to go for an audition, I would have done it by now. And he's like, no, I really think you should. And we got back in. I took him out on George Street for one night. And we went to Greensleeves and then the Bull and Barrel. And he had his last drink and he looked at me and he said, well, I got to go now. He said, it was great meeting you, but I really think you should. And I've mentioned it to some people around here that are going to be on set. So the next day I called Alan Hocko. I said, this is weird, but I was talking to Ethan Hawke and this is what he told me verbatim, man. So I get it if you can't do it, but if nothing else, is there anywhere I could take lessons or something? I'm going to really give somewhat of a try to this. Thinking nothing. What happened? One second. Hey, Elaine, can you get the cat? Meowing outside your room. Sorry about that. So, I go to this audition, and it's for this show Frontier that's coming. Again, the same people that I Take the Shot Productions. They've combined with Momoa's company. I think it was called Pride of Gypsies. They're in LA. We're over here. They wanted to do this show about British redcoats and the indigenous.
You're a soldier in that, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I ended up. That's exactly what happened. So I go in there and I audition to be a cook. Now there's a camera right here. Danielle Irvine, casting director's here. Paul Wilson is reading my lines with me. He's here. I do an awful, awful job as the cook. I know I did. Everybody there knows I did. And Danielle's going, no, and I got to have a British accent, right? And it's like 3 pages long. I'm not doing a good job. The more I think about it, the more I suck. And anyway, I go, whatever happened after that, the camera's there. I just think they're recording me, but it's being like, they're actually watching it live in LA, whoever the powers that be are that are producing and / casting this movie. So I don't realize that. So I go over and I take a sip of my coffee and I take my tooth out, right? My flipper. And the only reason, guys, I hadn't got it fixed yet because I was waiting to join the crew union, which I did join. I just joined it, and I was waiting to get it fixed. And so, anyway, like through the union. So Danielle goes, wait, and there was someone in her ear. I can't remember. One of the guys behind the camera said, is that Alan's buddy, that the hockey player? I said, yeah. The director from L.A. His name is Brad Payton. He happens to have been born in Gander, Newfoundland, okay? That particular year, I was playing senior in Gander, Newfoundland, senior hockey, and I got Aaron Asham to come in and play with us, and it's big news. So he says, are you out there playing with Aaron Asham? I said, yeah, I am. So anyway, we have a good conversation, but I don't think much of it. I don't. I go home, and then Danielle Irvine, who was just in the room, the casting director, calls me, and she says, you know what? I think they might want you for something. So it turns out what happens, the very, very first scene in Frontier, 5 seconds in, is Momoa has a British redcoat captured. And the guy had to look beat up and distraught, angry, depressed, all of the above. He's caught, right? Momoa's about to kill him. And so they love the fact that I had no tooth. And it only required the words, please have mercy. So I can do that, right? I can mail that in. Please have mercy, right? I can do that. I just don't want to have to think about 3 pages. So anyway, she goes, you got to cry in this scene and you got to like beg for your life. And if you can come out and do it at my house now, they're going to give it to you. And I believe Momoa had something to do with that. So, because we'd end up being good friends. But anyway, so I go in and I fucking do it. I bring myself there and it was wild. I get the role. So now, like, and as we do it that night, the camera A, B, and C are right here, and I'm caught, and they want to get my reaction. Now, behind the cameras are all my buddies on the crew that like never thought usually cross over into something like this. T-Bone's about to do a scene with Jason Momoa. This is fucking great, right? There's TPs and fires behind me as the setting. Anyway, and they're about to do it, and Brad Payton, now the director, he goes, "How much time do you need?" And I said, "I don't know, 30 or 40 seconds, I guess." And I did it, and I didn't do it really that well. Like I did it kind of like mailed it in. What I thought was good wasn't. And Momoa came over then during the next rehearsal, and his knife hit me in the back. And he said, "Oh, sorry about that. My knife hit you in the back." I said, "I thought you were just happy to see me." And everybody started laughing again. And then Brad came down and he got in my ear and he said, "Look, you've got to I want to see blood, sweat, tears. I want to see snot. Like you're not saying please have mercy because you want him to keep you alive. You just want a quick death." And he's like, this is the teaser for the whole show, and it's going to come out. And I mean, I should have known that already, and I thought I was doing all right, but I'm like, okay, now I really got to get there. So I got there. He said, "How much time you need?" I said, 30 seconds. He looked around. And he said, "Everybody, 2 minutes. Shut the fuck up. Terry's about to go." So then I was like, "Oh Jesus." So I did get myself there, but what's funny is that it was more the emotion of like when Momoa was there, and in that time, it was almost like, okay, I fucked up one opportunity at something great, and now here I am with Jason Momoa about to act in a scene with me, like, and it was almost like if life had ended there, it would have been like just wild that I got that opportunity, right? Yeah. So that's it. So I do the scene. Me and Momoa become friends. I teach him how to play hockey, skate. We skate every Sunday at St. Bon's Forum. And then he says, I'm sitting there with him down at the Merchant Tavern in St. John's. We're having a beer. Some of the crew are around it. I think it was on a day off, but we all hung out together. Mo was great like that. Hangs out with all the crew. So his assistant's there, and she got a call. I think she had to go back to LA for some reason. Maybe a health problem for someone in her family. And he just looks over at me. He goes, "You want to be my assistant for 3 months?" I said, "No shit, I'd love to." Takes me over to Europe, puts me back in Frontier because I've died. The running joke, I die like 14 times in the show. Like I became I put on different wigs, eye colors, everything else. He puts me in a movie called Braven. He's got me. Oh, we do season 3 Frontier in Northern England. We're staying in castles. The rest of the crew and everything are like down in the township somewhere in these old like farms with sheep and everything. And me and Momoa are like up in these castles, and his team and everything, and his stunt team had all been in like Lord of the Rings. One was Spider-Man's double. And I'm meeting all these people, and I'm doing the easiest of stunts, right? I'm not jumping out of the castle fucking window or anything, but I'm just learning how to kind of take a punch and where the camera goes and all that stuff. So he goes, by the time you get back, now you can do your basic with stunts. You got a resume now. And it got me into the acting union. So I got into the acting union again. And he says to me, I don't know if I would fix your tooth. I go, what? He goes, a lot of acting is about a look. Sure enough, I get back. I get asked to be like a gangster, a pimp, a drug dealer, a drug addict, and very rarely a hockey player. And I'm telling this story that I'm telling you now on Spittin' Chicklets, and Jared Kiso from, those who know Shoresy and Letterkenny know that it's created by Jared, and Jared plays the main character in both. He happened to be listening. So I was just a few days later, I was driving down the street here and casting called me. I thought it was a joke. They said, do you want to be in Letterkenny? I'm like, sure, I'd love to be in Letterkenny. And I go up there, and sure enough, I do this scene. And, he tells me before it, he goes, I've got the lines written, but I've only been to Newfoundland once. And he says, I watch Coldwater Cowboys all the time. That's about Newfoundland. But if you need to add anything to this, he goes, the whole point is that you're taunting the bench. And it's you and your buddy. And so the guy who comes out, Patrick Cook, I know him. I haven't seen him in 15 years, but he's from just down the road. I played hockey with his two brothers. And he says, okay, I'm going to do Townie, like Monday Pondary. I said, okay, I will too. Let's do it. So then, so we kind of combined. And we just went through and did it a bunch of times. And then at lunch that day, Jared said, I'd love to have you back. He said, I have an idea. Up here, he said, and you're going to hear about it soon if I decide to do it. And then a year went by. I didn't hear about it. And I thought, okay, it's over. But I didn't know it was Shoresy or anything. And then not long after that, he said a year, it was maybe 15 months. I got a phone call and said, can you be available in October, November, and December? And when they told me why, I said gladly. And Ted Hitchcock was born.
That's awesome.
Love it.
Crazy.
That's
so
incredible.
Crazy.
Yeah, that was a long story.
Terry, I feel like we've just scratched the surface. There's so much more to go. Please, we're gonna beg and
we gotta have you back.
To come back another time.
I know it's a lot to deal with, guys. My dad is worse than I am. He'll be a good guest for you at some point. But yeah, I talked to him.
Come on with him. Yeah,
I want to hear about Friday night at Seniors too. Next time, I hear about.
Yeah,
this.
You know what? And if you guys are ever on the Rock, you got to experience. There's a guy named Liam McGuire, a great hockey historian.
Yeah,
one of the best. Well, Liam's down there right now as we speak. So we went to Brockville and did an event last weekend, and the boys are in town. I was going to do it with them. They had a game last night, and they're going down to Marystown tonight, but I got to go to Fort. But he said, Terry, is there a chance I can get in there? So he just had breakfast and went down, and as we speak, he's with my old man at the house checking out the basement.
That's outstanding. Thanks for this, Terry. And as a history major, I loved Frontier. So props to you and congrats on all the success. And please, let's do it again. Bring on Dad too, because let's see, Vaseline, pepper, urine, hot sauce.
There's golden handshake too. Don't forget the golden handshake.
And the golden handshake as well. Yes, he is an absolute beauty. Terry Ryan, join us here on the Clearing the Crease podcast.